are live with Adrienne Cleveland. First episode of our agency break-in, day 2 at the Martin Agency. Adrienne, we're pumped to have you. I like morning interviews, so you got the best
me
of
too.
me.
I'm a morning person.
Don't tell the other people, but how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm a morning person, so I'm doing fantastic.
Boom. I think that was the first time I interacted with the guest in give a high five.
Physical contact.
One more. Boom. So Adrienne, you are, and I think it's good because good energy, because your job is Chief Operating and Culture Officer here at the Martin Agency. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
We got to break that down. I mean, I'm curious what it's like to work at the Martin Agency. We're behind the scenes now. We want to showcase to people and brands and other companies that might want to work with you what it's like here.
Yeah.
So what does this role mean in a nutshell?
It means a lot of stuff. I mean, I think most people know, culture and operations to mean HR. And so am I allowed to curse on this? Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Sweet. Okay.
What are you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say it is so fucking fun.
There we go.
It's so great. It's so great at the Martin Agency. I admired the Martin Agency for 20 years while in Richmond. I've been in Richmond for about 21 years. And I always looked at the building and met a few people and was like, they're just the coolest people I know. They're just making such cool shit. So to be here, sometimes I have to pinch myself. It's unbelievable that I get to help lead the agency.
So you've been here,
amazing.
You've been in Richmond for 21 years, you said.
Yeah.
It does have this aura to it.
Yes.
It seems
Magic.
Like it comes out of nowhere. It's in the center of Richmond, the cobblestone leading up to it. It's the way I put it, it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It seems for ads, and that I see that. So before Richmond, what were you doing high level, looking at Martin externally?
Yeah, most of my career has been in Richmond. Before that, I'm originally from Northern Virginia. My dad was in the military. And so I moved to Richmond and thought it would be a cool place to go to college. And VCU was cool.
True.
And then
is cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was cooler when I was there, but yeah, anyway.
Then you left.
Yeah, then I left. No, it is cool. And then I desperately tried to get out of Richmond, but there was a couple of organizations, Martin included, that I was like, well, this is a cool place because this place is here,
Mm-hmm.
I started my career in finance, and then went into a little bit of consulting, business consulting, nonprofit. I've had a really widespread career experience, but all in operations and all in culture building. And so I think what's benefited me is being able to see that in different industries.
Yes.
And knowing how to apply it regardless of what the industry is. It's people are the same. A lot of times process is the same. And a lot of times what makes operations work is the same.
Oh, okay. So you can take the same philosophy, methods at a financial company and apply it to a creative agency.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
If you really deeply care about people, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So where do we go from here? Do we want to talk about what you studied and how you broke into your first job? I think that'd be fun.
Okay. I study psychology. So nice. I love studying people, and analyzing people, good or bad. And I thought, maybe I would continue with psychology. And then a mentor told me, they were like, I think you should go into finance and HR. I think they really need folks who are deeply interested in the way people work, and the way they function. And so I took a shot at that. And there was a local finance management company that was here in Richmond, and they hired me as a receptionist / junior recruiter.
Okay.
And
junior recruiter.
Yeah.
It's quite the combo.
Yeah. And I was like, this is awesome. This is great. And at that company, I rose up to the highest position in recruiting pretty quickly in 5 or 6 years. And it was just because I was so interested in people. I wanted to meet with people every day. I would take recruiting meetings, 6 or 7 a day, and I couldn't get enough of it, of just understanding people's story, understanding how that, applies to the company, and trying to get them to be aligned with what the role was, right? So it's not just about the role that we have. It's also about, is this the best next step for you? And so trying to bring those two things in alignment, I was almost addicted to it.
There we go. So then how did you get your first promotion then? Were you asking for it, or did you get noticed because you're working hard? Run us through that moment.
Yeah, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, and if you're not familiar with that, it's just a personality assessment, but it's high achiever. So I get a high off of, like, overachieving, and so I think in a lot of companies, if you're an overachiever, people are like, "Hey, you're ready for the next promotion." I didn't self-promote a ton, but I was willing to do the hard work and stay late and get up early and do all those things, in order to continue to rise in the ranks.
Wouldn't you just wanna hire if I was a CEO and what you just said, I would only wanna hire 3s that are high achievers.
I know, and that's sometimes
Where are
like
they at?
y
Where are you a high achiever? Are you on the 3? I'm looking at the camera, not the people in the background.
oh, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it is yes, I think a lot of CEOs wanna hire high achievers, but what I've learned over my career is that you need all kinds, right? So everyone needs to be a high achiever, but not everybody has to be obsessed with just trying to achieve results. Some people need to be really obsessed with process and slowing things down to make sure that we have the right plan to move forward, right? And so I've learned that over my career and working with individuals is that not everybody needs to be built the same way I am.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. What were some of those hard-hitting lessons then when you were rising up in this field? I mean, at potentially that first job, or were there any of those big moments that were hard-hitting for you that stand out?
Yeah, hindsight 2020.
Mhm.
When I look back, there was a lot of moments in my career where I thought it was a setback. Like I was really disappointed because of my high achieving personality. If I had the slightest little mistake or setback, I thought like, "Oh, this isn't for me. Like I'm failing at
Ooh,
it."
I resonate with that, yeah.
And so now when I look back on it, what I try to do, and I get an opportunity to mentor a couple of folks, I always say, see that as an opportunity to learn. Like it is building resiliency, and you are going to be a lot stronger. That's not just a saying. Like if you can move past it, um, you're going to remember that experience. You're going to remember that feeling. You're remember in the gut of like, oh, should have fucked it up. Like, but that's going to propel you forward. And the next time that you have an opportunity to kind of like put yourself out there a little bit, you'll remember that feeling, remember that everything was okay.
Mhm.
And the more you do that, the more you test that out, the better the more prepared you are going to be to take more risks, right? So like you won't hesitate to take that next move, even though you don't know how it's all going to work out.
Right.
So like when I look back on my career, I'm like, man, a lot of those like setbacks, they really set me up to take big risks now in my
Right.
career, right?
Right.
And if I never had them, if everything worked perfectly, um, then the first big setback when the stakes are really high would be detrimental, right?
Yeah, it's kinda nice getting them out early too.
Yeah.
Is there any stories that come top of mind?
I don't know. I mean, like goofy ones, like I remember one time, like I went to this big meeting or I was invited to this big meeting and I got opportunity to present and like we had big clients in the room and like I had my shirt on backwards, like
Oh,
and didn't know. And like, you know what I mean?
that's not bad.
No, it was pretty bad. Like I turned like it was bad. And I felt like I'm like this
Did the client say, "Alright, I'm out of here. She's got her shirt on
well, that's
backwards. I'm done."
exactly. No one freaked out, but for me, it was just like it represented you're not prepared,
Yeah.
you're not good at this, like it's too soon. You're not ready for this. Like how could you just mess something as simple as that up? Um and like yeah, when I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. And so I would say that to somebody else younger, like it's okay if there's like those little things that make you feel like, damn, why didn't I get it perfectly?
I sent an email, an all agency email, my one of my first ones in my old job, and it sent 50 emails in a row to every employee. I was like so nervous to send it out. It was like a calendar fix.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sent it out. I'm like, oh, I did it. This is easy. And then I heard a ping, and then people around me, like the office, there was another ping, and then another ping, and it kept going. And
And
it
you were
went
like,
50
crap.
times in a row.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one,
Yeah.
but
It's
nobody
all
cared. They're
well,
like, that
see,
was funny. You just delete them.
no one ever cares, and I
Nobody
think, like,
cares.
both of our stories, it's about perception.
Yeah,
Like, it's like you're allowing external like, what you think people are perceiving about you to impact the way you perceive yourself and whether you think you're ready, for these
totally.
opportunities and whatnot, and yeah, we're always gonna feel that way no matter how much we grow in our careers, we're always gonna feel that way, it's just that we're more prepared to feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And then after that, I was able to send out emails. I didn't care.
Yeah.
It was like, well, I already messed up the worst could be.
I can always correct it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're talking. So, where does this take you? How do we get you into the Martin agency? When does this break-in happen?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, this is an interesting story, or just ironic. When I first graduated from college and I was seeking jobs, and I got that finance job, one of the other jobs I applied for was a receptionist role here at the Martin agency. And at that time, there wasn't like in-depth job descriptions. It was just like, send an email to this random email box and tell us why you're amazing and why you should be at Martin.
Okay.
And like, they had the open roles, but like, and so I applied, got declined, and was like, all right, whatever. And then 20 years later, I get a call when I'm the CEO of a local nonprofit. I get a call from Carmina Drummond, and she's like, hey, we've heard a lot about you and some of the initiatives that you've done. She's like, I'm at the Martin agency. We would love to bring you in. And at that time, I thought like it was a consulting thing. Like I thought she just wanted to pick my brain on some stuff, because I was like, my background's not in advertising. And she brought me in, and I met with a couple of people. And I think it was like halfway through the process, she was like, okay, so I'm getting ready to retire. How do you feel about being my succession plan? And I was
Here
like,
we go.
holy shit. Like, am I being interviewed to like take on the chief culture officer role? And I freaked out for like 2 days and was like, hell yeah. I'm like, yes, I would love to do that. And so that was the way I got into the Martin agency. From there, like I met a lot of other executives. I got to meet Kristen, who was the CEO at that time, got to meet Danny, who is our CEO now. And just, it was everything that I thought it was. So, obviously there's like, it is like magic, right? From the outside, you look at Martin and you're like, it is like Willy Wonka, right? You're like, is it amazing? And as I was interviewing people, I was like, no, there is magic here. Like it is just as amazing as I imagined it would be. And so even though it was a hard decision to leave my current role, I said yes. And in the first 3 months, I remember getting up in front of the agency twice and saying, you guys, this is a special place. Like there is magic here. It is special. And I can say that because I'm newly in.
Right.
And I thought so many things about this place, and you guys did not disappoint. Like
there we go.
There is something really
20 years of
amazing
expectations in the making there. And then laddering up to this moment, you broke in, and then you realized it was true.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
So I've been at Martin since February of 2023. So it's going on 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, 2023 was 2 years ago?
Well,
wow.
February of 2025 will be 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, like what's the vision now, I guess? What's the game plan?
Yeah. Well, my title changed a little bit from Carmina's, and that was intentional. Because I had, operations experience coming in, and not that operations wasn't running here at Martin, it was. I had like an interesting POV on it, from being in different industries. And so I wanted to tackle this role, not just managing and being accountable for building a great culture or maintaining a great culture, because Martin already had a great culture, maintaining a great culture. But I wanted to see that culture operationalized, and I wanted every single employee to feel it. So and it's still my goal, right? To say, if we say this is our culture, and we say Martin's really cool, and we say Martin's really fun, if not every single employee feels that, then we're still missing the mark. There's still room for us to grow and change. And so a lot of that is like looking at, what do we want to continue to be? What do we want to grow into? And then how do we strategically make sure that that's in the fabric of everything that we do? So it's not good enough for us just to have like a statement up on the wall, or to just say like, hey, here are the onboarding materials that we give you, and it says that, this is Martin's culture. I'm like, it's a year in for an employee. It's 2 years in. It's 3 years in. Are you still feeling that? Does that still resonate with you? Like, do you experience that on your day to day? And if not, then we still need to make sure that we're aligning those two things, and that it's not just what we say our brand is as an advertising agency, but that the talent feels that.
Right.
And they can testify to it.
How do you measure that?
that we're continuing to test. I think we measure it in one-on-ones with folks. I think I measure it when I see people make LinkedIn posts, right? Like they're not required to do that.
Right.
When they talk about the culture at Martin, when they talk about their experience, like no one's paying them to do that.
Right.
That's a great measurement of whether talent is experiencing what we're putting out. And then another way we measure it is constantly evaluating, like going back and reflecting on some of the activities that we do, some of the operations that we have. And we're like, all right, as a team, my team, as a team, did we feel like we operationalized the culture? Like, do we feel like that last thing was in line with the culture, or do we feel like we compromised the culture a little bit? Do we feel like we kind of skirted a few things in order to get something done because we wanted to be on a certain time frame, but we sacrificed like who we are, and what we wanted to be in order to achieve that, right? So like we're constantly having to evaluate that and whether the juice is worth the squeeze. Carmina, when we were transitioning, she introduced that phrase to me, like, "Is the juice worth the squeeze?" And
Yeah.
so a lot of times that's in the back of my mind when I'm thinking like, "Is this worth risking our culture, right, to do this, to achieve this thing?" And
Mm,
so we have to constantly evaluate that.
got it. How would you like? What's your vision of the culture? Like, what? Like, how do you define it?
Yeah.
Is there a system that you have? Is there a framework to define the culture here?
No, I mean, I think there is a framework and there's all those details around it, but simply put, I want everyone to feel like they belong. Organizations are really important to people's lives. You spend an enormous amount of time at work.
Yeah,
You
sometimes more time than
than
here with
you
your family.
anticipated.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
family
sometimes
stuff.
more
Yeah.
time than with you spend with your family. And so it should be an important part of your life. And if you don't feel like you belong and you don't feel like this place like inspires you and you don't feel excited to get up in the morning, and I know that sounds really cliche, um, then there's work for us to do, right? So like that's what I want the culture to be. I want the culture where every single employee is coming in and they're like, it's not just Adrienne that I enjoy my work. It's not just that like I get jazzed because I was able to succeed or produce this or achieve this for the client or we made an amazing creative and it got recognition. It's also because I love being with the people here, right? These are my friends now. These people I jive with, they get me going. I'm excited to have conversations with them, right? I feel like I belong to this place. And I know that it can be cliche because we move from job to job, right? I've had several jobs in my career, but every single one of those places, I can tell you whether I felt like I belong there for that season or not.
Mm,
Like I remember the ones that I'm like, man, I would go back in a heartbeat if I had an opportunity to go back to that organization. And then there's ones where I'm like, I would never go back.
right.
Like no matter how much money they paid, I would never go back.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. I love that. I'm just thinking in like in agency life, there's so many external variables that can impact culture.
Yeah.
This is a business where we are predicated upon our clients. And there could be situations, we've seen it. I've seen it in the fishbowl communities,
Yeah.
being in agency life and talking with people, doing this for a couple of years now, losing a client or, you know, something happens, that culture can be, it's, what would you say if I mentioned that culture can be out of our control sometimes? Like,
Mm.
how do you handle that? Is that true? Or how would you defend?
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. There's probably portions of it that are out of our control.
Yeah.
Right. We can't we can't always control the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of this industry.
Right.
Right. A lot of that is based on economics. Like
Hmm.
and just, people argue whether we're in an economic decline or if we're on a rise. And it depends on what brand you're talking to, right? Of
Hmm.
whether they're doing well or they're headed for doomsday. So I think there's aspects of it that we can't control. I think culture is really based on relationship. And I think if we care more about the people behind the work than just the work, then culture is in your control. Right. Everybody wants to be seen and they want to belong and they want to be a part of the work that they're producing,
Right.
not just about the work that they're producing. So when we reduce people to just the product that they were producing, yeah, a lot of culture is out of our control.
Mm.
But if we're focused on the work and the person, in an equal way, then no, a lot of it is in our control.
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. What would you say to somebody that wants to break into the culture sector of this industry?
Oh, like
Yeah.
specifically within
Yeah.
culture?
Yeah.
I would say, be hyper focused on, people and relationships. Think back on, like, what are examples of where you inspired your teammates or your peers, right? Did that get you more jazzed than, like, what you guys were accomplishing? Then
Mhm.
maybe, like, culture and people work is for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you wanna impact, the way people feel at work and the type of talent that comes in, or you wanna attract a certain amount of a certain talent. I think culture, then, culture is for you. And then I think people who want to kinda see something change in our industry, I think those folks should break into culture. We need more folks who have been on one side of advertising to kind of enter into the what I call the backside of
Mhm.
advertising, um, because they know what it's like firsthand to do the work, and so
Mhm.
they can better speak to people who are now doing it and coach them and inspire them and be for them, as they're building their careers.
What is the coolest culture initiative you've seen at the Martin Agency so far?
Well, it's hard not to talk about, like, my own
Yeah,
initiatives,
let's
but,
do it.
I would say we have an initiative called Cake, and we're gonna launch it in 2025. And I think it's a cool initiative because one of the things that we've seen in the industry that's been like a hole or a gap, to no fault of anyone's, is that there isn't intentional mentorship and apprenticeship anymore. And, like, when you look at, like, the advertising of the 50s and the 60s, there was more time to do that because the client demands were not the same.
Mhm.
Now it's like, because, we're running really fast and the clients demand a whole lot, and it's like you gotta produce more in a shorter period of time.
Totally.
The mentorship and the apprenticeship has been squeezed out. And so some people are like, I'm lucky if, like, I get to observe somebody, like, on a drive-by, like,
Mhm.
as they're producing something. So, Cake is an initiative for us to put in intentional mentorship and apprenticeship and add that back to the system without taking anything away from the business. So, I can't get into the special sauce because it wouldn't be a Martin magic if I gave everything away. But we're gonna launch it in 2025, and and we've done a lot of work over the last year on it, and I think it's gonna be cool, and I think our people are gonna be incredibly impacted by it.
Why is it called cake?
It's because we gotta bake what we need, right? So we can't go out looking for it. We can't depend. Brand schools and advertising schools are fantastic, and they're fantastic foundation, but we can't keep going back to them and saying, "Hey, we need you to do this in order to prepare our workforce for this," right? Like, we have to create it. We have to bake it. We're in
So
this industry. If we know what our gap is, we gotta make that cake and
so
eat it,
2.
and
Like
eat
that.
it too.
Yeah. So is this gonna be for, people this is for current employees, like entry
Yeah.
level, like
Yeah, like, there's a focus. I mean, obviously, the greater need for apprenticeship and mentorship is, you know, talent that's within their
Mhm.
first year and probably 5 years in, right?
Right.
But it really is for everybody because the industry is changing so fast that some people are like, "Adrian, there's some stuff that you're building out in Cake that I might need, and I'm 10 years in." So,
Sure.
it's not solely for, year 1 to 5, but I would say that that's the
Mhm.
group that needs it the most.
Yeah, would you ever look at doing something for folks that the internship program,
Mhm.
Marty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, would you build something like this for the people that wanna break into the Martin Agency? So, do you oversee Marty, that
I
program?
do oversee Marty.
Let's
Yeah,
talk about that.
I oversee it. I don't do the hard work on it, and it's amazing. Even our last, Marty program, we brought in, man, just some rock star folks, and I think there's no better way to learn this industry, but, eh outside of just being thrown into it, right?
Mhm.
And so in some ways we do that for our Martys, but we give them a ton of support. So they have mentorship, they have folks that are walking alongside them, and I think that's the reason why it works. But it's easy for you to set that up for an internship. Sometimes it's not always as easy for you to set that up when people have started full time and they're
Right,
they're they're on board. So we're very, very proud of our Marty, program, and a lot of Cake has been modeled on
right.
what we found successful in Marty.
Yeah. I think the dream scenario would be get into the Marty program, get hired full time, go into Cake.
There you go.
That's a good
Yeah.
launch pad
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
How many people do you guys look at for the Marty program? I'm sure it
Oh
varies.
gosh. I'm probably gonna misquote this number, but it's hundreds.
How many do you hire?
This year we brought on 11 um
Yeah,
Martys.
it's a good amount,
Yeah,
right?
and that
Because
was
you
out
can,
of, and I think it's varied year to year. So I think the lowest has probably been 7, the highest might have been like 17.
it's tough
Um
to get into that. You know, if you're getting
yeah, it's
hundreds, I would probably assume over 1,000, thousands would be safe to say that you.
it's thousands of candidates. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And what do you
is.
ask them on that first? Is there like a crazy question? Is there, for the application
Well,
changes every year?
I have to shout out my team. I have an amazing team. Hunter Scott. Hunter oversees that program, and she does a fantastic job. And you asked me the question about like, how do you know you want to be in culture? Hunter is one of those people where
Yeah.
she is a people person. She takes the time and the energy to make sure she talks to every single one of those Martys, but also like our junior creatives. Like she spends time with them, and that it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
a big load, but she's passionate about it and she cares about it. And that's the reason why our Marty program is so great, is because she spent time with every single candidate, and even the candidates that didn't make it into the program. What I remember, one thing she told me, she was like, Adrienne, we've declined so many people. And sometimes like it breaks my heart, the people that we have to decline, right? We're really selective.
Mhm.
She goes, but she makes an intention to send a message to every single person that we
Now we're
decline.
talking.
And it's a personal message to them, because she's like, a year from now, they could be a rock star. And we
Right.
want to bring them on. So the experience that they're going to remember is how we decline them.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
because that
she's,
you might develop like somebody might have a little edge
yeah.
and they want to be like get back at the recruiter that ghosted them. And I've got that edge. I've got that chip on my shoulder with a couple agencies. I'll name them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll list them out. Number one.
Yeah, you never know what talent, like they might not be ready for your
Yeah.
agency right now,
Yeah,
but
it's
like in
hard.
2 or 3 years, like they could be. And now you're like, crap, I ghosted that candidate, and now they're amazing, and
Right.
we're trying to recruit them.
And they'll
So
remember that.
yeah,
But that's great that Hunter, what a good name, Hunter looking around.
Hunter Scott.
Yeah.
Yep,
It's like
she's great.
perfect.
Everybody on my team is great, but you asked about the Marty program, so
Gotcha.
I had to highlight Hunter.
Gotcha. So is there any fun questions you ask? What's like is on the application? Is it like send us a video or a funny poem or anything like that?
No, I would say that we're a little bit more serious and buttoned up, because the selection process is, I mean, there's so much rigor in it. And so but we're talking about creatives, right? We're talking about people who want to be in advertising. Like they bring all of their fun, creative stuff to the interviews and into their responses to questions. And so it's always a treat to kind of like read some of that stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So we talked a lot. I think we have a really good understanding. Was there any other things that we should have brought up to ask you?
I don't think so. No.
When does the application open?
For Marty?
Mm-hmm.
The application, typically we start looking at candidates in early spring. So,
yep.
And I don't even know if March is considered spring, but like March, April
opens up then.
And then
after,
and then Marty is typically every summer, right around June, July, and then goes, and some folks stay on until the end of the summer. So it's pretty early that we start looking at folks for Marty. And we sometimes are even looking at folks in as early as the winter. So if they reach out, folks can reach out about Marty at any point though. Like, if you're ambitious and you're about it, typically we have already heard from somebody who wants to be in Marty.
Now we're talking. Yeah, I always tell students and recent grads, like, stay on the radar. Like, now we're recording this. What day is it? September 25th is like a good time to get on the radar.
Yeah.
Like, because we know that the internship season opens up after December, like February and in the spring. So if you're reaching out then, there's like the onslaught. Like, people will be messaging you and your team a bunch. So if you can kind of stick out now.
Yep. And I will say this, the Marty program is a good springboard into the industry. I mean, you asked that question of like, what does it take to get into the industry? And our internship program in particular, because we do such a great job in the selection process, and because these Martys just like show up and show out, a lot of times we hire them. Yeah. So it is a really great springboard, and they already have experience working with clients, like they're already on work. And so it is they almost have like they're able to hit the ground running when they're hired full time coming out of our Marty program.
I have a hot take.
Yeah.
I think I've said this a couple times. I feel like it's almost harder to get an internship than a full-time job sometimes.
I agree with you.
Because internships they open up at the same time across the whole the whole industry. They're all opening up, and then people of all ages can apply. They know when it's coming. So you're going against a large applicant pool, and there's usually a limited amount. So it's tough to get these internships. And I tell people, don't stress too much if you don't get your dream internship. Like, you can take that summer, then work and make money, like, do bartending or a job on the side, and then build up your portfolio, focus on your craft, do some social media consulting, whatever that might be. You can actually free up, like, in the summer, build something incredible, like a podcast that eventually comes your full-time job.
There you go.
Like, there are things not to stress about. Like, wouldn't stress too much if you don't get that perfect internship. It's just, how do you use your time wisely if you don't get that? Because
I would 100% agree with you. That's more than a hot take. Yeah.
So I always tell people, don't stress too much.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, how can people reach out to you if they got their portfolio ready to rock and roll and they want to?
Oh, people can send their book at any point. We're always evaluating talent. And like I said, even like 20 years ago, when I would like just send an email to the Martin Agency, I'm like, even if you get declined, even if it's like not the right time, just keep trying. Like, if you want to be here, like, be persistent. That's what I would tell people.
Love it.
And send it to anybody on my team.
Love it. Adrienne, I feel great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, this is a treat. Thanks for having me.